Hello, Joe.
Barry, good to see you again,
Nice
buddy.
to see you again too. Tell us who you are.
My name's Joel Elston. I'm an adoptive parent of a foster child 3 times over. Yes, I've done that. I did several years ago, and a bunch of circumstances happened, and I did it again. And just recently, I have a 12-year-old son. Just came into my home a little over 2 years ago as a foster care child. Adopted him officially in December, and he's doing really well.
Excellent. So, what made you get started with foster care?
Well, it's funny. I have a huge background of social service work. I used to run group homes for kids, and I had a really rough period in my life with addiction and stuff. And I got in recovery, and I started actually working and training foster parents. I really love that. I love the concept. And who dealt these cards, Barry?
You did.
I did.
You did.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, we had as I was training, we had a young man come through the program that he had been in like 17 different foster care placements in a 24-month period.
Wow. And
they actually approached me as a single parent. They said, would you consider being a foster care parent? And I'm like, well, I mean, I had a lot of baggage in my background. I didn't know if I was qualified. Pretty wild time. And we were able to get me approved. And so I became a foster parent to him. And I didn't know what I was doing at all on any level. But
did you really need to know what you were
doing?
Well,
that was sort of the point. Maybe that's what helped. I just simply... I knew common sense. If he'd been in 17 different placements, there's obviously something going on.
Exactly.
So day one, this is my favorite story. His name's TJ. My favorite story about TJ is he comes into my home, and as you know, we were just talking about this before we started recording. The IEP process is obnoxious at times. Yeah. So we before he could start school that first day, he had to go and have a brief IEP review and get him set up. You know what I mean? That's what we're going to do. So. I bought him a bunch of new clothes the night before, and he came out wearing, getting ready to go to school, rushing around. He didn't want to be there, and he, I particularly didn't care if he was there or not. And so he came out wearing an old T-shirt that he had, and it had a little Nike symbol that he drew on there, and had a ripped arm. And I said, "No, buddy, you're not going to wear that to school." Well, and he's probably at the time about 60 pounds, a little skinny thing. And he stood there and he ripped his little shirt off, and he jumped up and down, and he started cussing every word you can imagine. Wow. And I'm sitting there going, and I just watched him for about 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes of doing that. And he said, my favorite thing he said, and I just started, I try not to laugh, which is really inappropriate for me to laugh, but he said, "And you're a whole ass." I go, "Did you mean asshole?" He goes, yeah, that's what I mean. Well, so I'm trying not to laugh, and I'm like, "Okay, are you done?" He goes, "I guess you want me to get my stuff and get out of here too." And I go, No, I need you to get dressed so we get to school. Yeah. I said, "But when you get home today, I'm going to teach you how to cuss properly." And he looked at me like, I said, if you're going to do it, buddy, we got to step it up. That's not even, And so it was like at that moment he just saw me a little differently, and so I basically just treated him as I expected. I didn't push him, and when he tried to push me away, I just ignored it. And eventually he started to thrive. He couldn't read when I got him. He was reading on grade level in 6 months, and so he was just doing wonderful. And so things really, so it really made me start thinking. I had been. My dating relationships have been crazy, bunch of strippers and stuff in the past, and just some wild life. And I'd never found anybody that I really wanted to settle down and get married. I mean, I hadn't had any relationship really last more than 6 months, and a big thing. But I did find this urge. I'm like, I like being dad. Yeah. I like the structure that being dad entails. Had great success with him, and so there's a long chain of events that we won't go into today. But I ended up TJ didn't want to be adopted at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And in South Carolina, I guess everywhere, at a certain age, the child has to agree to be adopted.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want to be at that time, so they immediately brought another child in my home. And said, "You're approved, let's do this." I said, "Yeah, I'll do that."
So they didn't let TJ stay?
Well, no, he had to go to another home.
Really?
And he was doing so well, they moved him to a regular foster home.
Okay.
So Chris was my youngest at the time. And so he came to home, he's 8 years old. He was just loving it, ready to be adopted. He settled in really quick, doing well. Well, about 2 weeks into Chris being there, TJ calls, and he said, "Will you please adopt me?" Well, I can't say no to that.
Yeah.
And now I go from single, no kids, to, now I have two.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, exactly. You can relate. And so through a whole, as I said, life happened. I really, and as you were talking, as being a foster parent, into adoptive parent, I had I loved what I was doing, a lot of it, but there were some really difficult times. I mean, there were some times where I really questioned my own sanity. I questioned, why am I doing this? At one point, even with TJ, we were living in Florida on a beautiful island in the beach, and things were going well, and he had a drug overdose that it was just like crazy. 15 years old, and then he had another one when he got out, and it's just like, wow. I looked into what it took to return him, to undo the adoption.
Really?
I went that far into looking into it, of like, and of course I didn't do it, but I mean that's where the mind goes. It's almost like a coping mechanism. And I said, why did I do this? And we got through it, and we ended up back in South Carolina, because I had a lot more support in South Carolina than I did in Florida. Florida didn't have a really good system in place. And since I did adopt him in South Carolina, I had a ton of after support.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so it went really well, and we, with him, it just was every child's different. Yes. And I believe when you're dealing with foster care into adoption, and any kid, not just any kid, every kid's an individual, and what they respond to is differently. They go different. And
absolutely.
So learning TJ, and then Chris was much different than TJ. And then, unfortunately, in 2014, TJ was killed in a car wreck.
No.
Yeah, he was
really?
23 years old.
Really?
Yeah, and it was hard. He had turned his life around. He was doing amazing. He was engaged to be married.
Wow.
He completed his GED. He was a welder. I mean, just I was so proud of what TJ was doing, and it was a really big shock. Obviously, losing a child, and it was devastating. And so I as I worked through that, they can't see it on the camera, but I have a bench that I sit on in Florida. The name of my book I wrote is called The Bench, and it's a place where I sort of go and get recharged and feel about life, and decide what I want to do. And one day I'm on the bench about 2 years after TJ had passed away, and I said, maybe I'll do it again. And maybe, not to replace TJ, but just I'm still, even though I'm old, I'm not, I'm still very young. I'm a young old person, if that makes any sense. I have a great career, I do well, I have a very flexible schedule, I have plenty of money, and I said, I have the historical, one thing that you're discovering, and you will, as your kids grow, and you'll, I think everybody, I also realized probably 90% of the stuff I worried about while they were going through stuff didn't matter at all. I used to get into pissing contests. The stupidest thing,
you got to pick your battles.
Yeah, I had to learn to pick. And so in reality, even though I'm quite a bit older now, and having a 12-year-old. In fact, most people, that's your grandson. However, I still have plenty of energy, and I believe I'm a better parent because I don't engage in every battle. I don't, I just, there's no need in that.
I always say that parenting's like trial and error anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when no matter how you do it, if you give natural birth to a child in a traditional setting, you don't come out, a set of instructions don't follow out, it doesn't come out behind it. So you have to figure it out yourself.